Hello and good morning, everyone that we have here. Please say hello. Tell me who you are in the comments. Hello, we have another person joining. Please say hello in the comments. Let me know who you are. Hello. Another person. Hello to you as well. Ah, 3 people. I don't think I know you. I don't recognize your names, but it's nice to have you here. We have some more people joining us as well. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, depending where you are. It's morning here in the UK. 10 o'clock on a not very nice day in Glasgow, unfortunately. Thank you all for coming to this live lesson. Ali, good morning. I like your sunflowers, very nice. Okay, anybody else coming in? Okay, say good morning, please, or good afternoon, depending where you are. If you don't know me, my name's Alex. I'm an English teacher. I live in Glasgow in Scotland, in the UK. My channel is Learn English with Alex, English Now, where I give lessons, 2 lessons every week. And I also have good morning, thank you. I also have a Facebook group called Learn English with Alex, which has about 100 students on there just now. It's a really good thing. So please join it if you haven't already. I'll put some comments, a link to that in the comments after we've finished with this today. So I think we will get started with the lesson today. So as the information, pleasure as well for you, thank you. As the information I gave today, we're going to look at 3 perfect tenses in English. So by perfect, I don't mean that they are ideal tenses. They're not the best tenses, but they all have something in common. There's something similar to all of these tenses. And we're going to look at the similarities in the meaning. We're going to look at the structure of them. And also, I want you to contribute to this as well and to write some sentences as we go through the lesson, as we look at these things. Now, I have my iPad here. I'm going to show you some sentences as we go along and some structures and things like that. But also, I'm going to put the text and the sentences in the chat box. So whatever's easiest for you, you can look at the screen as I show you them, or you can look at the chat box. So to start with, I'm going to put up 3 sentences of the tenses that we're going to look at. Okay, so oh, that's not very clear. Let me do that a little bit different. I'm going to do one after the other. So sentence 1 and sentence 2. Have a look at the chat box. And then the 3rd sentence is just coming up just now. Okay, so you can see these sentences in the chat box, and then we have them here as well. So the sentences we have are: always enjoyed working in the UK. It was 2006. I'd worked in UK for the previous 5 years. And by next year, I will have worked in the UK for 5 years. So if we look at these tenses that we're going to study today, the first one, I have always enjoyed working in the UK. That's present perfect. Okay. And the second one, it was 2006. I had worked in the UK for the previous 5 years. Past perfect. Both of these simple. We're talking about simple tenses today, not the continuous ones. And the last one, by next year, I will have studied in the UK for 15 years. So we have these 3 sentences, and they have something in common in that they're all called perfect tenses. Okay, so the first one is present perfect simple, the second one, past perfect simple, and the third one is future perfect simple. Okay, these are the sentences that the structures that we're going to look at. Now, obviously, they all talk about different times, but there's something very similar in these sentences. Okay, so to start with, I want to think about the time that these sentences, that these structures and tenses, if you want to call them tenses, talk about. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little diagram with these sentences that we're talking about. Okay, so the first sentence is, I have always enjoyed working in the UK. And we can see there's a little diagram there of what this actually means. So you can see present perfect there means that something from the past but is until now. So we see this useful diagram there that shows that something is going from the past and until now, until a point. And the point with present perfect is now, the present. And our other sentence, it was 2006, I had worked in the UK for the previous 5 years. That is actually a similar meaning because we're talking about a time in the past going to a point. But unlike present perfect, the point that goes until is not now, but is until another point in the past. So you can see really, really clearly there the similarities, see how similar both these structures are. That present perfect is until a point until now, and past perfect is until a point, another point in the past. So that other point in the past in this sentence is 2006. It was 2006, and before that, I had worked in the UK for 15 years. Hello, Tushy, somebody else joined. It's nice to see you. Okay, and future perfect is actually quite similar as well, because, you know, this idea that we have a point and we're talking about coming to that point, that is the whole idea of the perfect tenses, or the perfect aspect in English. So if we look at future perfect this time, a slightly different diagram, but we have, by next year, I will have worked in the UK for 15 years. So again, we're looking into the future, but we're talking about up until a point. So up until the point this time is by next year. So this point here is next year. So we're talking about from now. Maybe that red line can go all the way back to now, and that would be a better way of thinking about it. But from now until this point, at some point in there. So again, all of these tenses, we're looking at something happening until a point. With present perfect, that point is now. With past perfect, it's another point in the past. And with future perfect, it's a point in the future. So that's something that I would like to remember when we're looking at these tenses. We're going to look at them now in a little bit more detail. So we're going to look at the structure. We're going to look at how to make positive sentences, negative sentences, and questions in each one. We're also going to look at the time references that we use for each of these tenses. And then I'm going to give it to you, and hopefully you're going to make some good sentences for each one. Okay? So I'm going to go on and start looking at each tense individually, and we'll start with present perfect simple. Okay, so we're going to look at why we would use present perfect simple, look at some more examples, and then we'll look at the structure as well. So I'm just going to copy some more sentences into the chat box for you. And you will have a chance to make some sentences soon. Okay, so this sentence here, we have the first one with present, oh, wrong one. First one we have here with present perfect simple is the example sentence we have, I've always enjoyed working in the UK. But the first reason that we have for using that is for something that started in the past and continues in the present. Okay, you see the bullet point we have here. So that's true of this sentence. I'll give you another example sentence that we could use for this as well. So that sentence is, they've been married for nearly 50 years. So that's from the past 50 years ago, or almost 50 years ago, until now. So that's an example of for something that started in the past and continues in the present. Okay, let's look at the next explanation of why we use present perfect simple. Again, I'm just going to copy and paste in the chat box so that you can see it. Okay, and in this one, it is when we're talking about our experience present. Okay, so the sentence we have here is, I've seen that film before. So we talk about very similar meaning to the first one that we looked at, but it's something before now, your experience until now. So I've seen that film before now. Again, present perfect. Okay, so let's look at another sentence. Okay, and the next sentence or the next meaning we have here is for something that happened in the past, but is important in the present. Our example sentence, I can't get in the house. I've lost my keys. So you lost your keys in the past, but it's important now because you can't get in the house. So it has present ramifications or as a present effect because you can't get in the house, you don't have your keys, you lost them earlier. So you say, I've lost my keys. Okay, so again, in all of these, you can see that something is before now, just like the general meaning that we had of present perfect, which we're looking at like now, like this, up until now. All of them have a connection to now. And that's one of the mistakes that students always make about present perfect, is that they use it for something that is just about the past. But with present perfect, as the name, present perfect, it has to have a connection now. It has to have something to do now. It's until now. You can see the effect now. It's a present tense. It's not a past tense. Okay. So let's talk about the structure a little bit, about how we make this tense. Okay, so we're going to look at typical, I think that's better now. Sorry if you lost me there. I think there was a problem with the connection. So typical time references, these are important in these tenses as well because it helps us actually use them when we need to. So typical time references for present perfect are today. Yeah, so for example, you say, I've seen him today, this week, this month, ever, never, already, recently, or yet. Okay, so all of these are typical time references that we would use with present perfect. And the final thing on present perfect is to talk about the structure. So here we're just looking at the grammar. You know, first of all, I think it's important to talk about the meaning of these things, thinking about the grammar here. To make a positive sentence in present perfect, have or has plus the past participle or the third form of the verb, whatever you want to call it. Negative, haven't, hasn't plus past participle, and question, have, has plus person plus past participle. Okay, so now we've got quite a good overall view of present perfect. And we've talked about the meaning of that. It has to have a connection to now. We've looked at some example sentences and some different reasons why we would use the present perfect. We've also looked at the time references that we could use and the structure as well. So I'd like you to try to make a sentence in present perfect and put it into the chat box. So we have 13 people here just now. I'm hoping that somebody is brave enough to try to do this. So let's think about the time references. I'm going to give you an example just while you're thinking about it. So for example, we've got never. Yeah, so I could say, I've never been to Elaf. Hello, how are you? I've never been to Japan. That's a good sentence. Yeah, so we've got the structure is right for present perfect. Uh, we're using the time reference never, like I said, and we've got a positive sentence. So have plus the third form of the verb. Can somebody try to put a sentence in the chat box, and I'll let you know if it's correct. I'm going to give you just a minute to do that. I'm going to get some water as well because I'm speaking all the time. Another sentence could be, I'll make one, for example, I haven't finished my homework yet. So that's a negative sentence. Using the time reference yet, like we said, we have in here for present perfect. I've never been to the USA. Parvane, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Please tell me if I haven't. Perfect sentence. I've never been to the USA. Thank you for contributing. Never been to the USA. I wonder if that's true. It's always nice to have example sentences that are true for our own life, I think, because I've never been to Japan. That's true. And if we take the example sentence that Parvane gave us, and we can try to turn that into a question, think about how you would make a question with that. I haven't finished my housework yet. Elaf, good sentence. Okay, that's good. So don't start your housework now, Elaf, because you were having a lesson. Valentina, hello. I've never seen the Eiffel Tower before. Good sentence. Thank you for giving us it. And what about a question? So we had this sentence, I've never been to the USA. So if we want to make a question for that, it would be, have you ever been to the UK? To the USA, sorry. I always think about the UK, not the USA. So have you ever been? I'm making a mistake. Have you ever been to the USA? That would be a good example of a question that we could have here. And notice in the question, we're going to use ever, not never. So that's an important thing to remember. Anybody else? Do you want to write a sentence for us? If not, then we're going to move on to the next tense. What's it? Have you ever been to the USA? Valentina, perfect. Thank you. Have you finished your housework yet? Perfect sentence. I've always seen good series. I haven't been to Edinburgh before. Okay, good sentence. Remember, Edinburgh, capital E. Paulina, I've never eaten frogs. Why not? What's wrong with frogs? It tastes like chicken. I have tried it in France. Okay, good. Perfect sentences. Let's move on, and we're going to look at the next tense, the next perfect tense. So the example sentence that we had at the start of the lesson was this. It was 2006. I'd worked in the UK for the previous 5 years. I'm just going to go back to the timeline quickly for that one, okay? Because an important thing with past perfect is that we need to have the two times in the past. With present perfect, then, we know that we're talking about until now. But with past perfect, then you see we have this red X here. We need to have this in the meaning, at least, if not in the sentence, for it to make sense. In our example sentence here, it was 2006. 2006 is the red X. I had worked in the UK for the previous 5 years. So this circle with the purple dot in the middle, that is the previous 5 years that we're talking about here. So that's something to bear in mind when we start making sentences with past perfect. If you don't have the time that you're talking about, you want to talk about before that, then we can't use past perfect. Then it's just past simple in that case. Okay, so let's have a look at why we would use past perfect. Just get to the right part. So, as I was saying, we use this for something that happened in the... I'm looking at the wrong one. 1 second. Okay, so for something that started in the past and continued up to a later time in the past. So, for example, she didn't want to move. She had lived in Liverpool all of her life. So here we can see that we have the 2 points. She didn't want to move. We don't say when. We don't have to say, like the X, the red X that we have. We don't have to say when that time actually was, but we know that that's her first point in the past. She didn't want to move. Past simple. She had lived before that in Liverpool all of her life. Okay, so the important thing to remember is even if we don't say the time, we have it in terms of grammar. She didn't want to move. Past simple, she had lived before that in Liverpool all of her life. Let's look at another one. Okay, and this one, again, the reasons why we use it can be quite similar to present perfect, like in this one here. When we are reporting our experience up to a point in the past. So again, we talk present perfect, we're talking about our experience up until now, but here we're talking about up until a time in the past. So for example, I was pleased to meet George. I hadn't met him before, even though I had met his wife several times. So again, we have this point, I was pleased, that's the past simple point, and before that, I hadn't met him before, even though I had met his wife. So we've got 2 examples of past perfect here. Okay, and the last example that we're going to look at with past perfect simple. I hope you're already thinking about the examples that you're going to put in the chat box because realize that that's coming. Okay, and again, very similar to the present perfect examples. For something that happened in the past and is important at a later time in the past. I couldn't get into the house. I had lost my keys. So I couldn't here. This is past simple, the past of can't. And I had lost my keys. So again, before this point in the past where I couldn't, I had lost my keys. It's important, just like I said, I can't get into the house. I've lost my keys. But in the past, I couldn't get into the house. I had lost my keys. Okay, and the next thing, just like with present perfect, is to think about time references. Some of the time references can be similar in this case. Some of them are a little bit different as well because the meaning is before with past perfect. You know, we're always thinking about before that point in the past. So typical time references that we're looking at are before, until then, so not until now, but until then, up to then, up to that point, never, always, and already. So always with the meaning of before that point. Yeah, already before that point in the past. And also the structure for these things. So positive, very similar to present perfect, but we're using had, and obviously it doesn't change. Tushy, okay, thank you. Perfect sentence. Had plus past participle, third form for positive. Hadn't plus past participle. So we don't change it for the third person, obviously this time. And question had plus person plus past participle. So there we've got the structure for positive, for negative, and for the question already, yeah? So Tushy, I hope that's your first name, Tushy Upen. I couldn't attend this week. It would be this week's class, apostrophe S, because I had lost my mobile. Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Perfect. Good sentence. I like it. So everybody else, I'd like you to contribute, and we'll see if you can make a sentence. This is harder, obviously, because we're thinking about 2 times in the past. We're thinking about the past simple time, like I couldn't attend the class in Tushi's sentence. And then before that, because I had lost my mobile. So I'd like you to think about some sentences. Use the time reference, look at the structures that I put in the chat box, and try to make a sentence there. One comment I have, Tushi, about your sentence is that I'm not sure if this is a good excuse. You know, what kind of teacher is going to accept this as an excuse? If you say, I couldn't come to class because I'd lost my mobile, that doesn't stop you coming to class. You can always come to class. So it's a good sentence, Tushi, but I'm not sure if it's a very good excuse. You know what I mean? But that's good. So let's try to think about some other example sentences. Type them into the chat box. If we look back at your sentences, I had already had dinner when you telephoned me. Very good example, Valentina, perfect, well done. If we look at some of the sentences that we had before it, for example, we've got, yes, I got it, thank you, good. Okay, and look back at some of the example sentences for present perfect, we can actually use them for past perfect as well, if we change the context as well. For example, Paulina has an example here, I have never eaten frogs. But we could say, I had never eaten frogs until I went to Paris. That would be a good situation where we could use that, because you're saying, now I have eaten frogs, but I had never eaten frogs until I went to Paris. I was not able to see him because I had gone already. Good sentence. One little thing I would change is I put already after had. So I was not able to see him because I had already gone. But apart from that, perfect. Very good use of past perfect. Any other examples? I'll give you another example. So maybe a negative one. I couldn't go out because the weather. I couldn't go out because the weather is too chilly. Okay, we have past simple and present simple, but we don't have any past perfect there, actually. Toyin there. She didn't join the class. She had forgotten to get the link. That was a big mistake, but a very good sentence, but she made a mistake not joining the class. Good sentence. She didn't join the class. She had forgotten to get the link. Very good. So, for example, if we take your example, Toyin, I couldn't go out because the weather is too chilly. So you could say, I couldn't go out because I hadn't finished my work. My typing is not good. Finished my work. I couldn't go out because I hadn't finished my work. So that'd be a good way to take your sentence, which is perfect, but just doesn't include past perfect. You could say, I couldn't go out because I hadn't finished my work. Okay, I'll give you another couple of seconds if you want to write a sentence. And if not, then we're going to look at the third perfect tense, future perfect. No, okay, let's go on and we'll talk about future perfect now. My iPad is closed. 1 second. Okay, so people get confused with future perfect quite often, but actually the meaning is very similar to present perfect and past perfect, because we're talking about up until a point. Like I said when I was showing you the diagrams of the meaning, the time lines that show you it's up until a point, but with present perfect the point is up until now. With past perfect the point is up until a point in the past, and with future perfect it's up until a point in the future. So the meaning is very similar. It's just we're changing the point from present to past to future. So let's have a look at some examples. So the example I gave you at the start of the lesson is, by next year, I will have worked in the UK for 15 years. So we've got this point, I will have worked in the UK for 15 years. Present perfect, sorry, future perfect, very often, by this time, by next year, by 2021, by 2025, very often we use this type of time reference with it. So let's have a look at another example. And an explanation as well. Okay, so the explanation we have here is to show that something will be complete at or before some point in the future. So a point in the future in an example sentence is next year. So this will be complete by this time. It won't be in progress at that point, but it will be complete. Example sentence, I can come out tonight. I'll have finished my homework by then. I can come out tonight. I'll have finished my homework by then. So tonight is our point in the future, and this means the homework will have been done by that point. Okay, and that's basically it for future perfect. We're talking about a time and something will have finished before that. So the typical time references that we use in this case like I said, very often it's by the time, by the end of the year, by this time next week, by 2025. So those are the types of time references that we want to use. Sorry, my finger is probably in the way, for future perfect simple. Yeah, by the time, by the end of the year, by this time next year, by 2025. Okay, so let's talk about the structure, and then again, I'm going to get you to make some sentences. I'll copy and paste this. I hope this helps putting it in the chat box. I think it probably does, but you can let me know if it helps just to see it on the screen, or if it's good to have it in the chat box as well. I guess you can look at it again if it's in the chat box and spend your own time figuring it out as well. Tushy, you're so quick. Okay, I'm going to come back to your sentence after I've talked about the structure, because there's a little bit of a mistake there. So structure. And structure, hopefully this will help you, Tushy, with that example. So positive, we use will plus have plus past participle, okay? An important thing here is it's never has. It's always have. It doesn't change for the person, yeah? So will plus have plus past participle. Negative, won't plus have plus past participle, and question, will person plus have plus past participle, okay? So you need to bear that in mind when you're thinking about your examples and trying to make this sentence. So if we look at Tushy's example, by 2022, I will have bought a new BMW. Okay, because we need to have the structure, Tushy, in that sentence. Will plus have plus the past participle, so it's bought from the verb buy, and that would be correct. Okay, we have another sentence there. We will have visited to Mongolia by 2025. Perfect. You don't need to in this sentence. So we will have visited Mongolia by 2025, and that will be correct. Okay, so just in that sentence, take away to. Paulina, we won't have received the parcel till next week. Good sentence. Okay, you're welcome. Good to get some corrections in there. Paulina, it's a good sentence. Ah, Angelica, hello. Nice to see you here. I'll have visited Romania by next. Can you hear me just now? Can you tell me in the chat? It tells me that my connection is unstable. Can you hear me? Okay, yes or no? Okay, I think it's better. I'm not sure if the connection is good now. That's really annoying. By this time next week, my connection will have been fixed. future perfect. Hopefully. I don't know. I don't usually have problems with my internet here, so that's quite annoying when I go to do a live one. I'll have a new job by this time next year. Good sentence, but again, that's not future perfect. So because we have will have, and then we need a verb after it in the third form. So you will have to say, I will have got a new job by this time year. We will not have gone, so we will, not wouldn't, to college until next year because of the pandemic. Okay, Tushy, you're welcome. No problem. Okay, so remember we're using will here, not would. You can use would in this structure as well, but it changes the meaning and we're not going to talk about it. Okay, any other examples for future perfect? Some really good examples here, I have to say. A couple of little mistakes, but you know, in general, very good. The one thing, you know, that I want you to take from today's lesson is this idea that these three tenses, that's why, you know, you don't often see these tenses being compared together, but actually they're very similar because it has this perfect aspect. Okay, so this is the thing to bear in mind. With present perfect, it's until now. Yeah, until now, present perfect, from a time until now. With past perfect, it's until a time in the past. And with future perfect, it's until a time in the future. So quite often the mistakes that students make with these tenses is thinking about the time wrong. So if you're thinking about the time right, until now, until a time in the past, until a time in the future, then you're going to make less mistakes with this. The grammar is, you know, a little bit complicated in some respects as well, but most mistakes with these things are just the concept, the idea of perfect. I'll finish my study by this time next year. Perfect sentence. Well done. Thank you very much. So in the notes to this, because later this will be released on my YouTube channel, Learn English with Alex, English Now, I'm going to put some notes, the notes that I have from here and the ones that I put in the live chat. I'm going to copy and paste them into the comments so you can look back at that. And also I'm going to put a link to some exercises that you can do from the British Council website so you can practice these tenses, practice the perfect aspect. Okay, so you can, it's okay listening to me, but you really have to practice these and make sure that you're using them correctly. So that will be the next step. So later on today, it will be on my YouTube channel. If any of you haven't, I've already talked to her by the time you come. Perfect sentence, Paulina, good. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. I release lessons every, send me an email, okay? If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. I have lessons twice a week, which I record and put on, but also I'm going to do a live lesson like this every couple of weeks as well. If you have some ideas that you think would be good for these live lessons, then please let me know. And like I said at the start of the lesson, please try to join my Facebook group. There will be a link in the comments as well, Learn English with Alex on Facebook, where I share a lot of things and I can tell you about what's going to happen. Tushy, can you send me an email? I don't know what the email you want about. What email do you mean? You can send me a message. I've gotten the past perfect, if you got there earlier, past perfect. I've gotten the past question if I got there earlier. Yeah. By 9 o'clock this night, I will have finished my report. Good sentence. Oh, I'll send you an email. Do you mean about our lesson? Because we're going to have the lesson on so Tushy, I didn't realize that was you. Can you move the lesson online on the afternoon? Yeah, I can do one in the afternoon if it suits we can try to do that. This week, I know a lot of you are at college and you don't have college this week, so I thought it would be good to do it. Yes, about Thursday. Okay. Do you want an email, or will I send you a message on Facebook? Whatever you prefer. I'll send you. I've got your email address anyway. So I'll send you a message after we finish here. Okay. So anyway, I'm having conversations with people which are not about this. So thank you all for coming. It was a pleasure giving you this lesson. I hope you learned something. If you did learn something, then please like the video, please subscribe, please join the Facebook. It's nice speaking to you all. Check my comments for the explanations, and check also for the exercises that I'm going to give so you can get some practice in these tenses. Okay? Thank you everybody for joining, and hopefully I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye-bye.